Welcome to the new episode of Brave New Edge. I'm your host, Nikola Legatic, and of course, my lovely co-host, Sinish Stanilovic, is here with me. Today, we have a special and unique and very special guest, Gil Luria from D.A. Davidson. Welcome, first and foremost.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So Gil has, a blessing and a curse to cover entire tech sector, right? So mostly when you talk to people that work for broker dealers and investment banks, they have a very narrow coverage, but Gil covers hyperscalers, companies. So, think of names like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Palantir, etc. So he has a unique stance on, he talks to obviously all these companies, but also talks to the investment community. So it should be an interesting one for sure. Maybe just to set up the scene, maybe your journey into the tech research and how you arrived at D.A. Davidson heading the tech coverage first.
Yeah. So first of all, D.A. Davidson, 90-year-old investment bank brokerage headquartered in the Pacific Northwest, Montana, Seattle, and my team resides here in Portland, Oregon. I've been in technology for 35 years. I've been covering stocks for 25, and I've covered all the types of technology stocks. And then I did a stint as director of research as well. So I headed up the research department. But about 3 years ago, I came back into coverage. And as it happens, the stars aligned that was exactly when ChatGPT came out. So here I am, end of November, beginning December 2022, and a source within the technology community tipped me that to the fact that the GPT had been released. I'd been hearing things about it, but I tried it and was so blown away that it really changed the trajectory of what I've been doing for the last 3 years. So to your point, I cover a really wide range of stocks. I get the luxury of covering the six mega caps: Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, and
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA, of course, and then another 45 software companies. But my approach really is top down. So that is unique on Wall Street. Most analysts don't get the privilege that I do to have that much of a spin. And the way we do it is we have a team, and so I have four other members of the team that are full publishing analysts, and they do the bottom up work. And so that's how we try to add value. Is I try to add top down value, they add the bottom up. And so hopefully we cover all the bases and we're able to help investors that way. So that is a little bit unique. And I'm very fortunate to be in this position. Again, some of it is just a matter of being at the right place at the right time when Sam Altman decided to share his ChatGPT with the world.
Absolutely. All right. So we usually like to ask a guest, kind of day in life. So with your particular position, let's maybe do a week. What does a typical week look like in your role, from, analyst coordination, your team, the company calls, institutional client engagement, actionable recommendations, things like that. So can you just maybe if you want to break it, busy earnings season and then just an average week?
Yeah. So because it's tech and includes a lot of software, there's on cycle, off cycle, and off cycle. So it's always earnings season for me.
Yeah, sure.
And I just get to triage the ones that I think are most interesting to listen to and dig into. But the value chain for me, the progression is there's a lot of primary and secondary research that I still do. I have a team, but I still listen to the podcasts. I read important papers. I obviously read the K's and Q's, but there's a lot of that because the dynamism and the rate of change right now is so great that you can't miss a podcast. If Satya's on a podcast, I need to listen to it that day because it will change the trajectory of where we're headed. So there's still a lot of that. Then there's a lot of interaction with the companies, obviously, through earnings, or we try to reach out to, especially to companies that are important intra-quarter as well. There's a lot of proprietary work that we try to do. We actually have an in-house expert network, so we can tap into that to talk about if there's an inflection point in technology in a competitive state. We have some proprietary data around software packet downloads that's phenomenally helpful, especially for infrastructure software. So we visit that at least monthly, more frequently if the earnings are at a specific time that we want to get a real time view. And so there's that upfront research part. Then obviously there's the analysis and presentation part that we do mostly for investors in terms of coming up with recommendations, trying to change those as frequently as we need to. We try not to get entrenched in an opinion. Famously, I was negative on NVIDIA. Now I'm positive on NVIDIA. I was super positive on Microsoft, and then I was negative, and now I'm super positive again. So that requires work because we can't just say, stock's going up, I'm a buy. We have to back it up. So we have to find times that we think there's a positive inflection point on the fundamentals and a change to the valuation or a setup on the valuation that justifies a change. Then there's the investor communication itself, presenting those ideas, a lot of conversation. When we want to get an idea out quickly, we do webinars where we could have dozens of investors. When it's something that's less time specific, we'll have individual one-on-one calls. So that's another big piece. And for me specifically, because I cover the mega caps, media is actually a really big chunk of time for me. And that's helpful because I get to get the message out broadly. I get to engage with people that I otherwise wouldn't be able to engage to. I always get a feedback loop from media appearances, whether it's looking at the comments on the YouTube when CBDC posts it, or I get a lot of feedback when I'm on podcasts. The people reach out to me through various methods, email, LinkedIn, directly, and so media is part of our process of being present, but also getting feedback from sources that I wouldn't otherwise get. So that's also a big part of my time. So the research, the investment, community engagement, and then the media are probably the three big pieces for me.
Interesting. I mean, this internal expert network is definitely unique. So, if you could, and the proprietary data also, I don't want to, have you disclose too much of a competitive advantage, but like if you had to pinpoint one competitive edge of DA Davidson tech research franchise, what would that be? What do you think, and what do you hear from the buy side?
So it's the three elements that I mentioned coming together. So it's me bringing 35 years of experience. I'm a lot older than I look, and then the den, we call it the den. It's an executive consortium. They don't like it when I call it an expert network. Don't tell them I called it that, because they have this network of private company executives at the forefront of technology. So not people that put expert on their LinkedIn profile, people that are actually experts. So when I want to know, hey, in observability, is there really a shift towards in-house? Is there really a situation where open source is taking meaningful share? Are the pipeline tools really taking away? I can talk to people that are implementing observability tools right now or are in the process of picking an observability tool right now, and they tell me whether those things are true and I should be worried about them. So that's the second part. And then the third part is this data. And I won't tell you too much by telling you that anytime you run Snowflake or Datadog or a piece of software like that, a developer has to download a packet of either Python or JavaScript or some other programming language in order to make that software run. And there's a repository online that's open to anybody of how much of those software packets were downloaded. It's incredibly messy. It's billions and billions of data points. We just have a unique capability within our team to extract the signal from the noise. So that tells you that intra-quarter, we know what's happening in AI, we know what's happening in the marketplace, and we have this independent data series and time series to tell us what actual software packages are being used right now, which spans not just your Datadogs and Snowflakes, but also piece parts of Azure and piece parts of AWS. So when that earlier this year, Azure actually had a weak quarter in its core business, and it caught everybody by surprise. Didn't catch us by surprise. When they had a positive inflection point, and we thought that Microsoft's going to do phenomenally well, didn't catch us by surprise, and we were able to share that intra quarter with investors, and that's how we try to add value.
And this is gathered from a publicly available information, or okay, so okay, wow,
Yeah. Oh,
interesting.
yeah. No, our compliance department made absolutely sure of that. This, don't get me in trouble here. Yeah,
Yeah,
I have a, yeah, I have colleagues that are that have spent a lot of time figuring out that question of how to extract the signal from the noise. It's a lot harder than it seems.
and what other type of alternative data are you actually using here? So you mentioned this, so that's definitely something that is quite important. I mean, you mentioned as well those like media coverage or whatever. So what are you actually using, and what are the tools that you're using to gather them? Is this some proprietary tools that you're using, or this is something that you uh, invented yourself or developed internally?
So this particular data set we developed in house, and again, I won't. I think I've already said enough. It's publicly available information. There's a tremendous amount of noise in it, and so uh, by crafting some clever ways to extract it and manipulate it, we're able to extract the signal from the noise. It's hard to find other alternative data sources for software and technology companies. We have aspirations to do more around semis and data center equipment. I think some other folks have come up with some clever ways of getting intelligence on that sector. So that's on our roadmap. Right now, we have some interesting ways to take X-rays of data centers and see what chips are installed. We've used that in the past. And when I say X-ray, I don't mean literally. I mean again a fairly a proprietary way of seeing that information. But there is good information out there now that others are putting out, and we're trying to see if we can do that as well, because it is such a huge question right now of how many chips are shipping where, how many data centers are being built, who's building them, when are they going to open? Those are very important questions that investors are asking themselves. Those are very expensive to find out, by the way. You have to start getting into satellite imagery and other ways that again are clever and we're exploring. But those are such big questions right now that these are things that are worth answering, and we're trying to figure out how to answer them.
And how do you validate the quality and reliability of those non-traditional data? So that's
Yeah. So it's a great question. So on our developer data, our proprietary developer data set, uh, we used it for a while. We saw that it works in terms of catching inflection points, but then we realized we needed more rigor than that. So we actually spent quite a bit of time back testing it and using a variety of statistical analysis methodologies to validate that there is a strong enough correlation, at least in some instances, to some metrics that validated the data. Sometimes the data is just valid on its face. If you just see people using more Postgres than they used to, people are using most Postgres than they used to. There's no stock that's tied to that, but it's a reality and it's important. But for companies that are very consumption oriented, like Snowflake or Datadog, those are why I use those examples. We can correlate to net new ARR, right? So we can correlate our data to how much incremental revenue did the company get in that quarter, and get some pretty impressive correlations. So we spent quite a bit of time on that rigor of back testing. So we feel comfortable that there's an academic underpinning to why we're using the data beyond the fact that intuitively, if people are using software more, that's a good thing for that software.
If you okay, because we got a little bit taken off track with the proprietary data thing, but like I would like to take maybe a step back, and when you look at your just general workflow, like in all the things that we discussed, like you mentioned building models, updating assumptions, writing notes. What are you doing differently now than maybe, well, I guess you started right at the cusp of it. I mean, you came back to the industry, but like, how does, uh, Gil Luria in 2025, his workflow differ from, let's say 2020, right? what tools are you using? Does that, you don't have to give us names, just a type of tools. What where do you find the, the efficiency gains, or even maybe like some, I don't know, maybe like cognitive amplification, like, your ability to process vast amount of stuff quickly. So just where do you, again, I'm repeating myself, but where do you, what are you using? And then I have a follow up on that.
Yeah, I'd say that what's changed, especially in the last 5 years, but I'd argue 5, 10, 15 years, is the velocity of information, the quantity of information has increased order of magnitude.
Right.
Order of
Right.
magnitude. If I think about how I used to prosecute my job 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was much more linear. I would spend a lot of time finding the data and then parsing it very finely in order to be able to find opportunities to add value. So I would have a lot less information that I would pursue a lot more deeply in order to add value. For now, there's such a huge influx of data and information coming from so many places that it's more a matter of how quickly can you process the information to derive insights, which means that the trade-off is I can't go as deep as I used to. I can't go when I'm trying to think of a good example. So let's say 15 years ago, there was a whole conversation about Visa, MasterCard, and the merchants. Interestingly enough, it happened again this week, but it was happening 10, 15 years ago. And I spent a tremendous amount of time trying to answer the question of would there be alternative networks to Visa, MasterCard? How likely are they to emerge and grow significantly? And I could talk to a lot of people and look at a lot of data and come up with a lot of charts in order to derive a conclusion. Now, in the era of I have to keep my eyes on the screen because a breaking story from The Information or The Verge or The Journal or so traditional media, new types of very aggressive investigatory media, what my competitors are saying, what companies are saying at conferences. And again, it's not one or two companies, not talking about just Visa, MasterCard anymore. The AI ecosystem is so complex with so many players that have a significant impact, private and public, that a lot more of the analysis now is signal processing and contextualizing. And again, this is where I mentioned I've been doing this for 35 years. So I've been at this for a while. I mentioned I published the first research report on ChatGPT. I also published the first research report on Bitcoin. So I'm old. I've been doing it for a long time, and so if I'm able to do good signal processing and contextualizing, that's where I try to add value, and that's where we are today. The velocity is tremendous, so you have to do a lot of that. But again, there is a trade-off. I don't get to go as deep on a lot of things that I would love to go deep on. Which again, part of the reason I have a team and we're expanding and we want to be able to still go deep on things. It's just that sometimes the news flow is so rapid that the question you were asking a couple of days ago is not even that important anymore.
Right. And what types of tools are giving you the ability to maybe separate, a thousand emails from all the subscriptions that you gather and everything else? Is there something that you're using now that you didn't use a couple of years ago that's making your life easier?
I think the aggregators have gotten pretty good. Um, Specifically, I do a lot of my usage is of FactSet. Obviously, we have Bloomberg Cap IQ as well, but I think those tools have gotten very good. And this is where we can start getting into where AI is coming in. The throughput from street accounts on FactSet, I don't want to plug them. We pay them enough money that I don't need to plug them, but we pay all these guys too much money, but that's okay. Their throughput has increased order of magnitude, right? My street accounts is feeding me valuable information hourly as opposed to daily or weekly, which is where we were again, even just 10 years ago. And part of the reason they could do that is it's no longer reporters. Clearly, a lot of it is using AI tools to summarize and distill and iterate. So they'll send you the immediate update, and then they'll send you subsequent updates. And there's some human in the loop there, but the speed is coming. The speed and the quantity is coming from the fact that they can use AI tools to do that. So, in a sense, they're using AI for me, and it's informing my process without me doing that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not trying to use the AI tools more and more. We dig into that a little bit. So, just so you know, we are very limited, especially in a regulated industry with customers. We're very limited. Different investment banks may be taking different approaches, but because as a firm, we handle client information. We can't just use ChatGPT on our desktop, right? Because God forbid somebody tries to put a customer document in order to create a presentation for that customer. Sam Altman owns it, right? And all of a sudden, our customers' data is in the ether, right? And so we can't just use ChatGPT. So we have to use it offline, which limits what we can do with it. We do. It's very valuable, but that's limited, right? So many of us, sell side analysts, especially because we work for heavily regulated industry, are limited in how we do it. Famously in New York, the associates are sent home to do work on ChatGPT, email it in, and then come back at the end of lunch, right? So this is how the world works now. Is because we can't use it on our work computer, then we have to use it offline, which is limited. But having said that, the ability to summarize documents quickly, the ability to extract information out of documents. I used to have to ask an associate or an intern, go through this 500-page debt agreement and tell me what the key stipulations are and what the recourse is, and what's the rate, and what's the rate range, and range outcome, and how much is the maximum draw. And it would take them hours, days to come back to me.
Right.
Where now I could just upload that document to ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever your speed is, or Grok, and it comes back immediately. Now, you'll say, "Oh, it hallucinates and it gets the
No,
numbers
I'm
wrong."
not that guy. No, no, I know. I hate when people say
No,
that. Yeah, but it does. But
w-
start a new conversation. It's fine. You
well,
will
what I want to point out is, yeah, so would my associate,
exactly.
right? I mean, that's how I think of it. The intern would make a lot of mistakes. A new associate would make some mistakes. An experienced associate would make a little bit of mistakes. Either way, I have to be critical. I have to scrutinize the response, double check, double click, verify if it's a critical piece of information. Give you an example. Another great use of AI is during my commute now. So if I have a particularly long commute, if you press the voice button on a Tesla
Love
long
it.
enough, it wakes up Grok, and I can then just have a conversation with her. Tell me about TSMC's operation in Arizona. How quickly are they expanding it? How many process engineers are in Arizona? What does a process engineer even make? What's the and I had a 45-minute conversation with Grok where she was able to answer all these questions. Do I have 100% confidence in everything she said? No, but it was a good conversation where she was extraordinarily helpful. But at the end, I asked her, Grok, what's TSM's forward multiple on earnings? And she very confidently said 14. Well, it's not 14, because if it was 14, we'd quit, sell everything, and buy it, right? It's 26, right? And so she can just get something completely wrong. And you got to learn where that is. It's like, don't ask her math questions because that's not how she thinks. She doesn't have that part of her brain yet. She will. She doesn't have that part of her brain yet. Don't ask her that kind of question. You're going to get the wrong answer. Don't ask her specifically what an earnings number was in a particular quarter, because she's much more likely to get that wrong than your associate.
Absolutely not.
But again, can she explain to me what's going on with TSMC in Arizona? She did an unbelievable job. Unbelievable job. Again, an associate would take in 2 weeks of work to get to the level of answers she gave me on the fly with very little latency.
You think that flat like this like information gathering used to be a part of the skill, right? Like it used to be, oh, I'm the only one that dug out this paper and read it because you know how people are in our industry, like especially on the buy side, it's like managing your job to an extent. So, oh, this long thing, like, or maybe you even, I feel like in the past I found research reports that I feel like nobody else read, or there was something on page 7 that now it's like everybody puts it in, everybody summarizes it, everybody gets the same summary. So the question I guess coming from that is, in does the skill set of a future analyst, whether buy side or sell side, change with the advent of these new technologies where everything can be processed and summarized? Does a sector uh, specific sector coverage go away, or does it become even more important? And B, um, I guess what will be the best way of phrasing it? Does decision making and and willingness to take risk, because now everybody probably has the same regurgitated and processed out information, even become more valuable?
Ooh, those are tough questions. Let me tell you what I think where we are right now. So first of all, my favorite phrase right now to understand where we are in the world, especially in the world of labor, of output, of work, is you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by somebody who uses AI better than you. I think that will become the core skill. We used to call it prompt engineering at the beginning. It doesn't matter. The ability to use the latest and greatest and most appropriate AI model to prosecute your work is going to become the core skill, especially for people that are entry level. It's going to become the core skill. Because I think you touch on something that's profoundly important, which is what we think about as knowledge and expertise is very much in flux right now. Because knowing facts, even knowing facts was extraordinarily important before Google. It was still important during the Google era. And now it means something completely different.
You
Like
said your
knowing,
fingertips.
understanding facts or historical context or things like that, it's like it's good for trivia night when you have to keep your phone off. It's going to be a novelty because everything else we will be able to use AI models to establish knowledge in something. So that's going to be a very big change. And again, that's especially important for people coming into the workforce is to understand that how to think is a lot more important than what you think or what you know, and how to use the AI tools specifically is going to become extraordinarily important for people entry level because we're going to place 10 paralegals with the 2 paralegals that know how to use AI really well. We're going to be able to get a lot more leverage from research associates because, again, the types of questions that we used to send them away for a week, we can now just send them with a bunch of these questions and they'll come back later that day with those answers. But they have to figure out how to use that really well. Now, the key is that at least for the foreseeable future, until we get to the Zuckerberg, Sam Altman nirvana of superintelligence, the high level tasks are will continue to reside in the human, and then they'll become so much more important. Again, that's why I underline experience, context, um, extracting signal from noise. Those are things that humans are going to be doing for the foreseeable future that AI doesn't know what question to ask yet. It can answer a lot of questions better and better and better. It doesn't know what questions to ask yet. And to your point about the models will all transcribe the same stuff, I actually think different people are going to be using different models. There's going to be some subtlety in how they're trained, what you feed into the model. But the models are going to start having memory and more of an understanding of what you've done in the past and what you know and what the model knows. So you'll get somewhat different answers. And then again, operating these models is going to be also a matter of that double clicking, right? It'll give you an answer. It'll give everybody the same answer, but you're going to ask it follow up questions to make sure you understand or show you the original, right? Show me the page in the debt deal that says what the stipulations are, what the remedies are for default. Show me the page. That I want to read. I don't want to read 500-page document. That one paragraph, I want to read that paragraph and understand really well what happens to CoreWeave and OpenAI decides to walk away, right? That's really important, right?
Yep.
That's
Interesting.
that's a great insight for sure. But and it's definitely highly optimistic view of things. But let's go a bit further. What part of the modeling and estimate process do you think we should never be automated or replaced by this AI part? What is that something that we still need to keep this human in the loop?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question because some of these tools are not pretending to be able to model for you, right? And that's tricky because I think the models are mature in some things, coding, for instance, they're getting pretty mature in terms of being able to deliver software code. Also early on, but somewhat mature. In things like modeling, I think we're still dealing with the version 0.01. Because again, remember, that's not how LLM models are, to use a word, to borrow a word from another context, so there's no baggage. They're more associative, right? Like a banana is close to an apple in the vector space, right? That's not how Excel spreadsheets work, right? Excel spreadsheets are this plus this equals this. You know, calculate min out of this column and know that if there's a minus sign, that means something. Know that if it's a text field in a number, in a row of numbers, that means something. These are things that Excel does well that LLMs still don't. And so the risk right now with this generation of LLMs of using that for modeling and forecasting is it wasn't an associate that built it for you. You didn't build it. You didn't build the formulas. You don't understand how the formulas work. It could be completely wrong, and it's going to be very hard for you to find out. Because again, this isn't LLMs are associative. They're not methodical thinkers. We're working on that, and reasoning models are little. It feels more like what we would refer to as methodical, but this isn't what they're really good at. Which isn't to say I don't think that in 2, 3, 5 years they will be because it's such an important application. But I wouldn't use an LLM. Maybe I'd use it to populate historical numbers and then have somebody sanity check it. And you can because you can look at the totals and you can you can make sure the balance sheet's balancing and things like that. It's a verifiable number, right? In the AI world, they're talking about we're going to make a lot more progress in verifiable domains than we are in unverifiable domains. To me, forecasting models are an unverifiable domain. Historical numbers are verifiable. So that's where I think right now we're at. But again, ask me again in 6 months, they may crack the code on that as well.
Well, the forecasting in general is more of a traditional machine learning exercise, not LLM exercise, right? Like if you were predictive analytics in general, right? I mean, so
Yes.
I don't think so. I think that's still like if somebody was to create something that was going to do a really good earnings prediction, it would have to be a very difficult traditional machine learning model. So it's not somebody just dumping in a prompt. But do you? So he touched in the modeling now. Like, is there something that you use now currently that you are going back that you haven't used before when it comes to building your estimates for companies, whether it's management tone, whether it's doing some NLP work on a conference transcript, or is there maybe like just a spot checker that you have a miss, but the management sounded bullish, or the tone changed over the last 90 days from neutral to bullish. So you're like, well, maybe that doesn't really signal like is there something that you're introducing to your research process that you haven't used before?
No,
Not research,
absolutely.
forecasting. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, we've always used qualitative and sentiment driven items to drive forecast, right? Every number tells a story and you have to know what the story is. But again, that is increasing in velocity and frequency and quantity because, and again, this is upstream for me, the aggregators are doing this. The aggregators are giving me transcripts with sentiment analysis that I pay attention to. So even if I don't read the whole transcript, because it's a company that's maybe a couple of levels removed from what I do, I can see what the sentiment is because they actually highlight it for you. Again, they summarize it for you. So upstream for me is an increased ability to add more contextual, soft sentiment data, because again, every number tells a story. But before we wrap up, I do want to mention that obviously we're not heavy users, right? We're still adopting these tools and gradually doing so. You touched upon the fact that machine learning is very good at forecasting, right? Not LLMs per se, but other machine learning tools. We have clients that have been doing this for years and are getting really good at it, right? So the progress we're making at the frontier of AI, the big AI, the one that includes LLMs and machine learning and all that stuff, some of our clients are getting so good at this that it's scary, and it's giving them an even bigger advantage than they had before. And we have to respect that, and then again, try to focus on the things that they can't do, that humans are still valuable for, that we've been hopefully we've gone through over the last 45 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last question, top idea, top stock pick. Gil, what is your top recommendation?
It's so boring. Microsoft.
You don't even have to
I
go
hate
any
to
further.
do that, but I have this weighted probability of outcomes in my head that's as wide as it's ever been. And I see every scenario as, oh, Microsoft wins.
Right. Guys. Well, they didn't have an outage like AWS did, so there's always some market share take there. But
There you go.
I'm not that. Gil, this was great. I know we have a hard stop. This was terrific. Thank you so much, and best of luck and stay in touch.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Bye.